What's up, YouTube? Welcome to ExceedTheHype.com. It's your boy Lucrecio coming at you with another video, another NBA breakdown, another 2017-2018 NBA Outlook video. Alright, and today the video is about the Dallas Mavericks and how they're building a power for years to come. Alright, so last year Dallas was in a situation where they were just fighting for an 8th seed. And they nearly got it. They narrowly missed it or whatever. Or they kind of fell off at the end of last season. But for a while there, they were in and out of that 8th seed. And they were able to compete just on effort, right? Because they really didn't have the talent to be able to be in that position. But just because of their grit and their young players playing hard and everybody had something to play for to try to steal that 8th seed and I guess prove people wrong that they were not trying to tank, they brought the effort every single night. And I could definitely appreciate that from the Dallas Mavericks, right? So let's talk about their team. The team starts off at Harrison Barnes. Well, it starts off at Dirk, but Dirk's ultimately pretty old at this point. He's pretty much past his prime quite a bit. He's still hanging on or whatever, but as of last season, he didn't have a lot of playing time. And this season, he's probably going to be there more for veteran leadership. He already got 30,000 points, so that's off the list. And even though he can still get buckets, he still had the shots still there, things of that nature. It's really going to be for the young guys to step up. And those young guys start with Harrison Barnes. Now, one narrative that has been going around the NBA is that Harrison Barnes was a bum when he was with Golden State, and he couldn't, hit the side of a barn and all this stuff. Harrison Barnes is a solid player. Harrison Barnes is a good player. Harrison Barnes is an all-star caliber player. All right, he's not a scrub. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Let's really look at the past at the years where he was with Golden State. All right, before, when they were a playoff team, when they were under Mark Jackson. When they were playing under Mark Jackson and they needed a bucket, a lot of times, this is before Steph Curry became the Steph Curry that we know now. He was still really, really good, but he wasn't as like superstar as he is now. I remember possession after possession, when it came down to them needing a crucial basket, they were going to Harrison Barnes or whatever for a mid-range shot or whatever. That was their offense. That's what they felt their best offense was at that time. All right, fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about the finals, the first finals in 2015, I believe, with LeBron and his injured team versus the Golden State Warriors. LeBron was dominating that, and who did they have on LeBron duty for a large part of that series? It was Harrison Barnes. It was Andre Iguodala too. Andre Iguodala was a little bit heavier and was able to put a little bit of body on him. But it was Harrison Barnes. They trusted him with that defensive assignment. Now, LeBron obviously ragdolled Harrison Barnes, but who doesn't LeBron ragdoll, basically? Let's go to the next year. Let's talk about, even though Harrison Barnes did miss quite a few of those shots, which the guys on that team who aren't shooters, they miss a lot of those shots. That's the best case. The defense gives those shooters those shots for that reason, because it's better than Clay, it's better than Curry or whatever. So Harrison Barnes did struggle from the perimeter in that series. But what was he really doing in that series? He was guarding LeBron some. He was guarding Kevin Love in the post for most of that series, and nobody gives him credit for that. Like, Kevin Love is a true post player when he wants to be or whatever. Harrison Barnes was bodying him up. Kevin Love could not get the position that he wanted down low for most of that series. Harrison Barnes took that challenge and was able to guard him that whole series or whatever, and kept them pretty unuseful or whatever the case may be, if that's even a word. So Harrison Barnes is definitely a legit player, a good player. I believe he will be an all-star eventually. That narrative about Harrison Barnes is false. Yeah, he didn't shoot good. He didn't shoot that well in that series, but Harrison Barnes is that dude. All right. So as a leader of this team, I think the Dallas Mavericks are in good hands. All right, let's talk about the rest of this roster. Let's talk about the new guy, Mr. Dennis Smith Jr. I really believe the Mavs. Well, first of all, big ups to the Knicks for messing this draft up again, as they do. Well, they did draft Porzingis, so they get credit for that. But the fact that they passed on Dennis Smith Jr. for a team that needed a point guard and a team that needed star power is criminal. They also passed on Malik Monk as well, which I could see somehow like how a team can mess up Malik Monk, because he's a shooting guard and he's a little bit undersized, and he's not a big guy. He's not a big physical looking presence or whatever. He's about 6'3" or whatever, playing the shooting guard. Everybody he guards is going to be bigger than him. So I could kind of see how you miss on that. But I don't see how you miss on Dennis Smith Jr. when he's like 6'4" and he's like lightning quick and he's super athletic, can jump over people. It's ridiculous. And he can shoot from outside too. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand how he slipped to the Mavs, but I'm happy that he slipped to the Mavs. All right, Dennis Smith Jr. A lot of people are saying rookie of the year. I can totally see it. There are a lot of good rookie point guards this year that are going to be on bad teams, that are going to have a lot of usage, a lot of opportunities to score and things of that nature. So it may be difficult, but if anybody could do it, it's this guy. Blue chip prospect in high school. I don't really understand why he went to NC State. His name in that 1 year at college would have been a lot bigger if he would have went to one of these bigger universities or whatever the case may be. Maybe not Kansas, because Kansas already had their point guard or whatever. But they could have found someplace bigger than NC State, because while he was in college, I remember at the beginning of the season, I was so hyped to see him. Number one, NC State didn't get a whole lot of national TV games. They weren't on CBS a lot. And then, if they're not winning and they're not on some kind of winning streak or whatever that keeps them relevant or whatever, even if they have like a prospect like that on the team or whatever, it's not going to work out as far as getting that notoriety and getting that exposure that you need to really put you in position to be drafted in like in top 5 or top 7 or whatever the case may be. So with that being the case, he did drop in the draft or whatever a little bit, but the Mavs were able to capitalize on that. They took him. Good outside shooter, lightning quick first step. There's not going to be anybody a defender in the NBA that can stay in front of him. All right, lightning quick first step. Will get to the rim, could dunk on whoever. He's super athletic. He's just a guy that you want on your team, and another piece that the Dallas Mavericks can build around. All right, I'm not going to get into the whole comparison thing, because to be honest, you could say there have been other athletic point guards. One of them won that MVP last year. We saw one win an MVP in 2011, but I'm not going to compare him to those guys. All right, Dennis Smith is in his own lane. He's going to have a chance to run his team along with some good players like Harrison Barnes and whatnot, and we'll see what comes of it. But I really love that draft pick, and it was big for the Mavs. The Mavs got a steal. It would have normally taken years and years to start amassing enough talent to come back strong in the Western Conference after falling off. But with Dennis Smith Jr., this was a large step in the right direction as far as building that team and trying to build another powerhouse in the Western Conference, where it's going to be tough for years to come with Golden State. Let's talk about their other mid-season acquisition as of last season, and that's Nerlens Noel from Philly. So this guy here has been underrated for a while. He's kind of been in a tough situation, because if you remember right, he was supposed to be the number 1 pick of that draft with Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett, who's the biggest bust in NBA history. I don't want to hear anything about Kwame Brown or all that stuff, because Anthony Bennett was by far the worst number 1 pick we've ever seen, right? So this guy was supposed to really be the number 1 pick. He had some, I believe it was ACL problems at the time. He dropped in the draft significantly or whatever, and then ended up being drafted next to Anthony Davis, and then that pick was then traded for Drew Holiday to Philadelphia. All right, upon being in Philadelphia building their team back up, which was also ridiculous, because if you think about Philadelphia, why was Drew Holiday's trade value so high is because they just made the playoffs. Derrick Rose had just got injured. They defeated the #1 seed in the playoffs and was in the second round. I believe it was battling against Boston or somebody like that. And we all got to see Drew Holiday, and everybody was like, "Oh man, this Drew Holiday kid is good," or whatever. And his draft stock was high, and they ended up trading him for this Nerlens Noel. So he goes to Philly. Philly rebuilds the team out of nowhere. I think Doug Collins went ahead and quit or something like that. They're rebuilding their team. The next year, I believe, they draft Jahlil Okafor, or soon enough later, they drafted Jahlil Okafor. They have all these big men there. Then they draft Embiid, and they just have so many centers. Nerlens Noel ends up getting caught in the crossfire, getting caught, behind these guys who were bigger, I guess, draft prospects or whatever. All the attention went to those guys. He's just there rotting away. So Dallas steps in. They have a young player in Justin Anderson or whatever. And I always liked Justin Anderson. I thought he could become something if he, improved his shooting and, just improved his skills. I thought he's one of those players who, even though they're not necessarily that good when you draft them, you could develop them into like a really, really good player, possibly an all-star type player. But anyway, they have that guy and they package him up and they trade him for this guy, a guy who fits what they need more, right? So Nerlens Noel is going to be the rim protector that the Dallas Mavericks need, and he could do a little bit more. He's good on pick and roll as far as being able to roll hard to the basket, being able to finish lobs and stuff like that. He'll protect your rim for you, and he can even shoot a little bit. And most people don't really realize that about Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel is a real deal. I don't believe they have re-signed him yet. That's going to be one thing because he is a restricted free agent, so they're either going to have to extend him on the contract, or they're going to have to offer him the qualifying offer, which is bad because then he'd be a free agent at the end of next year unrestricted. So they do have to figure out his contract situation. They have to make sure they can keep him. But I honestly think, and he's young, so I honestly think Dallas would do very well making him their center of the future. I honestly just believe that, or whatever. He'd fit real nice to these other athletes, these other amazing athletes that they have on this team. We talked about Dirk. He's just going to kind of be in the mix, kind of helping and leading these guys. Wesley Matthews is an interesting fellow on this team. I don't know what they're really going to do with him. He's still good. Okay, he had that surgery a couple years. I think it was Achilles surgery or whatever. A couple years ago, he returned from it. He's still good. He can still shoot. I noticed last year at some point they were kind of running their offense through him a little bit. I think that's a little bit much. I just don't see how he fits with the youth movement. That's all I'm saying. If you're gonna, expect to lose a lot of games and just try to get your guys learning how to play NBA basketball and kind of bonding together and gelling or whatever, he's kind of an older guy to have in that mix or whatever. He's somebody who could possibly go and help a contender and possibly try to get to the playoffs and win or whatever the case may be. But if he wants to be there, I'm sure the Mavs would love to have him because he's a very good player. Josh McRoberts, the stretch four, hasn't had a great career up to this point, but can definitely ball. Can definitely stretch the floor, shooting threes, and is like 6'10". So he's definitely somebody who it always would be good to have on the team. Somebody who could provide more space for Dennis Smith getting to the basket, and somebody who Dennis Smith could possibly kick it out to or whatever when he's getting to the basket. And then, so those are some of the key players. And then Seth Curry as well, naturally a Curry brother, so he's going to be wet from the perimeter. He also puts the ball on the floor a lot. He plays a lot at the backup point guard position, which I like. It's definitely quite the weapon having somebody who can handle pass and shoot like that. So he's going to be a big deal. The only thing with him at 6'2", 6'1", whatever he is, sometimes he just looks undersized on the court compared to whoever he's guarding, because he's like a combo guard. So that's going to be tough. If he's playing in the backcourt with Dennis Smith, I feel like he's going to cause issues because he's too small to guard other twos or whatever. If he's playing a backup point guard position it works, but then sometimes it seems like he's not necessarily as fast as the other point. So we'll see. We'll see. He does have to develop. They have to also figure out the most intelligent ways to use him in their offense. But ultimately, he'll be fine too. He's also a very good player. Let's talk about some of the role players that these guys have now. Yogi Ferrell, who's going to be the backup point guard most likely. He was a great story coming out the D-League last year. But honestly, he's another one of those guys because at Indiana he was a star. He was like a tremendous prospect in high school and things of that nature. I think he played 4 years at Indiana, was like a legend at Indiana or whatever. Came out, he really should not have been somebody you sign after the draft. He really should have been somebody who got picked in the draft, if not a low first rounder or a high second, whatever the case may be. But he definitely should have got drafted. He didn't get drafted because he's undersized. And I hate the way the NBA kind of NBA scouts and GMs and whatever kind of discriminate against undersized point guards, because just because you're not 6'3", like they want every point guard to be or whatever, does not mean you don't know how to play basketball. Sometimes those guys are the guys who know how to play the best. Like Isaiah Thomas is one, even though he's probably not the truest of a point guard or whatever. But sometimes that's where you have to go instead of trying to force, guys who are 6'4" to play the way you want to. Sometimes you may want to look at somebody who's 5'11" or whatever and knows how to play the style that you want to play. Sometimes I think that would work out for you. But hey, nobody really wants to hear that. So I think Yogi Ferrell is going to be a good pickup. He was a good pickup last year. We saw how he was shooting the lights out against Portland in his debut in the NBA. I think defensively, that's going to be something they have to figure out, or else he just has to improve defensively. But other than that, I love the way he can score on anybody, even though he's undersized. I like the way he can facilitate the offense or whatever. Really like Yogi Ferrell. He's one of my I won't say favorite, but he's one of the young players I really like on this team. Devin Harris is another veteran who's there, who provides more depth at the point guard position. He was there before he got traded to Atlanta, then he came back because Dallas is where he had his most success, of course. I think he got traded to the Nets first, and then he went to Atlanta. Dorian Finney-Smith is another example of how the Dallas Mavericks really make the most out of the D-League affiliate, and their scouting is really something that the NBA should look at, that other teams should try to emulate, because they find a lot of gems in the D-League. They just find gems. They have an eye for real talent or whatever, and they give people a chance. And he's a perfect example of like a player who, teams didn't want much to do with or whatever, who could really play. And just when you give him the chance, then he really helps. He really produces for your team. I think he's going to be around for a while with the Dallas Mavericks, and going to be a part of their culture that's going to turn the team around from a young team that's trying to figure it out to a fringe playoff team to possibly a powerhouse if they continue to add talent and continue to gel together. Ultimately, what I see for the Dallas Mavericks in this upcoming season, I think it's going to be a season kind of similar to last year, but it's going to be a season that features a whole lot of Dennis Smith Jr. And as him, Harrison Barnes, and the rest of these guys figure out how to play together and how to maximize each other's talents, we're going to really start seeing Dallas get better. Now, depending on when that gelling happens, if it happens early in the season, they get a rhythm together and they start to figure it out early, I can see them possibly trying to get in that 8 seed mix again and possibly steal it. If it takes longer, if they start gelling probably, after the All-Star break or whatever, then, it'll be more so that next season they'll look for to start trying to have a winning record or whatever. The Western Conference is going to be tough this year, so it really just depends. But going forward, I think Dallas will be really good. I like to see them get some more three-point shooting, though. I like to see them get a young player, maybe even Courtney Lee, because he's going to be available, but a young player that they can plug in behind Wesley Matthews or in front of Wesley Matthews, just depends on how good they are, and to provide more shooting, because they have a lot of shooting at the bigs with Dirk and Josh McRoberts and some of those guys. Dennis Smith Jr., we'll see how he shoots in the NBA. He was a pretty good three-point shooter in college. You got Seth Curry, who's obviously going to be a three-point shooter. But I like to see them get a big, long wing player who can shoot threes and defend at an elite level. That's what I would love to see them add to this team of, rim protection with Nerlens Noel, explosive point guard play, and all around, mid-range type, outside type, whatever you need type game from Harrison Barnes, all right? But that's what I think about the Dallas. I think depending on how they gel, they could fight for the 8th seed. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and leave your comments below if you think my assessment was correct or where your opinion changes, all right? See you next time. All right, peace.